So we gather together for Shabbat, about to light candles to cross over the threshold into Shabbat's unique sacred time. And in any week, we always come into Shabbat out of the week with all the many things that are on our minds and on our hearts. The good news, the bad news, the boring moments, the whole mix in our personal lives, in our society, and for the Jewish people, for America, and indeed for the world. Lord knows these past several months, it has not been an easy time to come out of the regular week into Shabbat. And that has been particularly true for our community this past week, because in just the span of 1 week, we had memorial services for both Fran Weinberg and Joe Beth, 2 founding members, 2 pillars of the community. We feel in our hearts the hole where they would be, just as we can picture them sitting in these seats and we notice that empty chair with a pang in our hearts. And I think that Shabbat does something very meaningful, very psychologically meaningful for us, for which we can give so much gratitude to our ancestors and to the divine presence for this gift. Because I think that Shabbat guides us to tune out the many distractions of the week, our to-do list and all the buzzes in our pockets, and to notice how we feel. To notice, as I said a moment ago, our tranquility and joy, menucha v'simcha, but also to notice our sadnesses, to notice our losses. No one wants to feel sadness, but sometimes we do. And when we do, I think Jewish tradition in its wisdom guides us to candor. That's why even at a wedding, we break the glass to acknowledge that there will always be moments of sadness and loss, along with moments of tranquility and joy. But what makes the difference is navigating through all of it with love. As in a married couple, so too in a family, in a community like Beth Shalom, for the Jewish people and indeed for all of humanity, to navigate it with love, with acknowledgement of all our emotions, acknowledgement of all that is going on, and with the love that we can feel among each other, and with our tradition to guide us, with songs to sing that can bring a spark to our voices, and in the midst of it all, sensing the divine presence watching over us with love, according to what that means for each of us. And by the way, there may sometimes be moments when we don't sense the divine presence watching over us with love, and that's okay to acknowledge too. As my father would say, I believe in a God who expects me to doubt his existence. But the fact that our tradition guides us to come together for all of this, bonded together and not alone, is a blessing of the utmost depth. So I thought it might be appropriate tonight to begin with a modern Jewish poetic example of this kind of candor, a poem by the great modern Israeli poet Yehuda Amichai, which you can find at the bottom front of our handouts, where he's playing on Kohelet, on Ecclesiastes. And it's among other things, a great example of what's possible in Israel. Because by using the Hebrew language and knowing he's writing for a Jewish majority society, he can do all these things, and he's inspired to do all these things, and he knows his audience will get all these things that are just incredible. And here in the diaspora, we too have the chance to take part in this richness. So he's quoting the original words of Kohelet, of Ecclesiastes, in the original Hebrew. I've translated the quotes using the translation in the King James Bible to give us, as English-speaking North American Jews, a sense of what it is to hear that classic biblical language and then to hear a modern figure playing with it and twisting it in his own personal, creative ways. The English that's famous from the King James, the English that's even more famous from Pete Seeger and the Byrds, because this is to everything there is a season. But I think that what Amichai does with it is both in its way subversive, standing the tradition on its head, but also by being in dialogue with the tradition, it's sustaining the tradition as a voice in our lives and evoking Judaism's deepest values to comfort us. So I invite forward Matt and Heather to read for us and then to light Shabbat candles, and you can find the blessing on page 2. I have heard so many stories of the fact that it was so important to Joe Beth when there were newcomers always to welcome them with a role such as an aliyah. So perhaps in offering you this role, we can sustain Joe's presence among us. And on a less lofty note, I will invite you to take my lapel mic. It is the best mic. Well, for the streamers, it's important. We don't want anyone to be lacking. Hang on. Oh, I'm a little tied up in knots here, aren't I? Well, as the Israeli expression goes, may these be our problems. She'el yiyu hatzarot shelanu. Here you go.
Trying to get my hands to work.
Perfect. No pressure.
Okay. Ready? A human being in their life doesn't have enough seasons to have a season for everything. And they don't have time to have a time. For every purpose, Kohelet, wait. Kohelet wasn't right when he said so. A human being must hate and love at once. With the same eyes weep and with the same eyes laugh. With the same hands throw stones and with the same hands pick them up. Make love in war and war in love. And hate and forgive and remember and forget and arrange and confuse and eat and digest what lengthy history does in a great many years.
Yeshua. Please, Heather, if you would.
This one first?
Either way.
Okay. I hope you read. Sometimes they don't like to.
Oh.
I don't remember the.